Ben was a pilot, and even though his son was seriously sick in another city, he couldn't visit him because of work. Then he got assigned to a flight that would pass near his son's city, giving him a chance to see him during a short stop. Meanwhile, at the airport, a passenger named Dan was using his laptop. He didn't notice that its charging cable was damaged and sparking. Later, the laptop and his luggage were loaded into the cargo hold of the same flight Ben was about to pilot. The flight took off normally. Passengers were busy with their own work, and everything seemed fine. But inside the cargo hold, the damaged cable sparked again and started a fire. When Ben and his senior pilot Rich received the fire warning, they activated the fire suppression system, but the nozzles failed to work properly. Realizing the danger, they contacted the nearest airport for an emergency landing. The bad news is the nearest airport was still 1,200 kilometers away. To buy time, Ben lowered the aircraft while 2 crew members went into the cargo hold with fire extinguishers. But when they reached the fire, it had already grown out of control. Then a cargo box suddenly exploded. The blast sent one of the extinguishers flying into the aircraft's body, tearing a hole in the fuselage. At the same time, another cylinder shot into the passenger cabin, injuring several people. Within seconds, air began rushing out through the hole. The cabin started losing pressure, passengers screamed, loose objects flew everywhere, and the aircraft began dropping from the sky. The cargo fire escalated, and the burning box finally exploded, destroying one of the aircraft's propellers and ripping a massive hole in the fuselage. The impact threw passengers out of their seats, some even with chairs still attached. Panic spread as everyone started praying. Ben and Rich quickly realized the situation was beyond control. They searched for a landing option, but there was no land nearby. The aircraft was over the sea. With no choice left, they attempted an emergency water landing. But the moment the plane hit the water, the impact tore it apart even more. The structure shattered, and the aircraft broke into multiple floating pieces. Passengers and debris scattered across the ocean. Some survivors clung to floating parts just to stay alive. In one section, a girl named Cora stood alone, shocked, not knowing what happened to her family. Nearby, a boy named Park was searching desperately for his lover Lisa. Lisa was still alive in the water. She tried swimming toward a floating aircraft piece, but a shark attacked her. She managed to escape and climb onto the wreckage, badly injured with severe leg wound. Another broken section of the aircraft had an air pocket where Newton and Cora's brother were still alive, trying to find a way out while a flight attendant helped them. In another part, Ben and Rich survived the crash, but Rich's leg was trapped under heavy debris. It could not be pulled out. The cockpit glass was cracking and about to collapse. Rich told Ben to cut his leg to save time, but they both knew he would lose too much blood. Realizing there was no way he would survive either way, Rich ordered Ben to leave him behind and seal the section, or else the entire floating wreck would sink. With no other option, Ben shut the door and left Rich behind. A flight attendant named Penny had also survived the crash. Ben knew they needed to find the aircraft's emergency beacon. Without it, rescuers would never know where the plane had gone down. Penny volunteered and started swimming through the wreckage in search of it. While she was in the water, Cora noticed something terrifying. A passenger's body was suddenly pulled underwater. Ben immediately realized what it meant. There were sharks in the area, and Penny was still swimming. Without wasting a second, Ben inflated a safety raft, gave Cora a life jacket, and rushed toward Penny. By the time they reached her, Penny had finally spotted the shark herself. Ben stretched out his hand to pull her into the raft, but he was too late. The shark grabbed Penny and dragged her underwater. Blood spread across the ocean as Ben desperately tried to pull her back, but there was nothing he could do. The shark charged at them again and even jumped into the raft. Ben fought it off by repeatedly striking it within, or until it finally retreated. Meanwhile, another section of the wreckage carrying Park was slowly sinking. The survivors realized they had to get into the water and reduce the weight before the entire piece disappeared beneath the surface. As they climbed down, they watched another body get dragged away by a shark. Fear spread through the group. At the same time, Lisa, terrified of being alone, managed to swim through the water and safely reach Park. But before anyone could relax, another survivor was suddenly pulled underwater by a shark right in front of them. Now, everyone knew they were being hunted. Ben eventually reached their section and joined the group. Elsewhere, Newton discovered that an elderly woman was still alive inside a flooded section of the aircraft. Together with Cora's brother and a flight attendant, they climbed into a trapped air pocket. The problem was the exit door. If they opened it from inside, the entire compartment would instantly flood and sink. With no other choice, Newton took a deep breath and swam down through a hole in the wreckage, hoping to reach the surface and bring help back. Halfway through, his shirt got caught on a piece of metal. Panicking, he struggled until the fabric finally tore free. Newton shot toward the surface, but when he looked around, he was horrified. Almost everyone nearby was dead. On a floating wreckage, Cora's father had somehow survived. Then, without warning, a shark dragged him under and tore him apart before anyone could help. Watching the attack, Newton screaming for help. As the aircraft wreckage continued sinking, Ben ordered everyone to abandon the plane and move into the 2 remaining lifeboats. Knowing rescue would never find them without a signal, he went searching for the emergency beacon. After finding it, he noticed Cora moving closer to the water while searching for her parents. At the same time, a shark was heading straight toward her. Ben quickly handed the beacon to Dan and rushed to save her. He reached Cora just before the shark attacked and pulled her to safety, but the aircraft broke apart and sank beneath the waves. The sudden movement created a powerful surge that threw everyone into the water. While the survivors struggled to stay alive, Dan thought only about himself. He dragged another survivor off a lifeboat and climbed aboard. During the chaos, he accidentally dropped the beacon into the ocean. When Ben found out, he was furious. Before the argument could continue, they spotted Park and another boy stranded in the water. Ben immediately decided to help them, but Dan stopped him. The argument quickly turned into a fight, with Dan blaming Ben for the entire disaster and claiming they were all suffering because of the pilot's mistakes. Ben punched him back and said he wasn't leaving anyone behind. Even then, Dan tried to escape by jumping into a nearby lifeboat. Ben grabbed him and pulled him back, telling him that if he wanted to survive, he could do it by helping save the others instead of abandoning them. As Park and the other boys struggled in the water, sharks began circling them. Ben rushed toward them, and just seconds before one of the sharks could attack, he managed to pull both survivors into the lifeboat. Meanwhile, inside the submerged section of the aircraft, the trapped survivors were still waiting for Newton to return with help. But time was running out. Their oxygen was running low, and the wreckage was slowly sinking deeper into the ocean. Realizing nobody might be coming to rescue them, the flight attendant decided they had to escape on their own. The only option was to wear life jackets, swim down through the wreckage, and find a way out just like Newton did. The problem was that only 2 life jackets remained. The flight attendant gave one to Cora's younger brother and took the other for herself. Together, they swam into the water. Halfway through, the boy began running out of breath and nearly panicked, but he somehow managed to keep going until they finally reached the surface. Nearby, they spotted a lifeboat and swam toward it. The boy climbed aboard first, but just as the flight attendant was about to get in, a shark attacked her. She fought her way free and managed to pull herself into the boat, but her injuries were severe and she soon lost consciousness. The boy screamed for help, but there was nobody around to hear him. As he leaned over the edge of the boat, looking into the water, a shark slammed the boat. The impact threw him into the ocean. Terrified, he tried to climb back aboard. Just then, a shark came racing toward him at full speed. Before anyone could see what happened, the scene cuts away. Back inside the flooded wreckage, the elderly woman was running out of time. Water continued filling the compartment as she stared at a photo of her granddaughter on her phone, knowing she might never see her again. Then the scene cuts once more. A helicopter was flying over the ocean. Night had finally fallen, and after hours of waiting, help had arrived. It seemed that a passing flight had spotted signs of the crash and alerted rescue teams to their location. A nearby fishing vessel had already been alerted by the helicopter and was heading toward the crash site. For the survivors, rescue finally seemed close. Soon the helicopter reached them. Unaware that sharks were surrounding the area, the crew lowered a rescue swimmer into the water. But the moment she touched the surface, she started screaming. A shark attacked her instantly. The crew tried to pull her back up, but the shark dragged her underwater. The sudden force destabilized the helicopter, causing it to lose control. Within seconds, it crashed into the ocean and exploded. Everyone on board was killed. The explosion and impact threw several survivors from one of the lifeboats into the water, turning them into easy targets. Panic spread as sharks began attacking the people struggling in the sea. From the other lifeboat, Ben suddenly heard a ship's horn. The fishing vessel had finally arrived, but there was a problem. The ship couldn't come too close because of the sharp rocks beneath the water. If it moved any closer, it could suffer serious damage itself. That meant the survivors would have to reach the ship on their own. As everyone prepared to move, Ben realized Cora was missing. Looking around, he spotted her sitting alone on a broken piece of the aircraft wreckage nearby. Ben immediately swam over to her. Cora refused to leave, still hoping her parents would somehow return. Ben explained that they weren't coming back and convinced her that staying there would only get her killed. After finally calming her down, he took her and started swimming back toward the others. Surprisingly, the sharks never came after them. The sharks were too busy attacking the survivors who had fallen from the other lifeboat. But it didn't take long for the sharks to finish attacking the survivors in the water. Once they were done, they turned their attention toward Ben. With nowhere to run, Ben fought them off using a flare gun while trying to keep himself and Cora alive. The fishermen on the rescue ship saw what was happening and quickly came up with an idea. They threw their catch of live fish into the water, hoping the sharks would go after the easier prey. Fortunately, the plan worked. The sharks changed direction and rushed toward the fish, giving Ben enough time to reach safety. Meanwhile, Dan spotted a floating cigarette pack and grabbed it, acting as if nothing had happened. But before he could even enjoy it, a shark slammed into the side of the boat. The impact threw Dan into the water. This time, nobody could save him. The sharks immediately tore him apart. With the danger finally behind them, the remaining survivors were brought aboard the fishing vessel and began heading back to shore. As they got closer to land, mobile phones finally started receiving signal again. While everyone was recovering, Cora took Ben's phone and used it to check the tracking device attached to her brother's shirt. Their mother had given him the tracker in case he ever got lost. To everyone's surprise, the tracker was still active. It was showing an exact location out at sea. The captain immediately turned the ship around and headed toward the signal. When they reached the location, they found something nobody expected. Cora's brother was still alive. Even more surprisingly, the injured flight attendant had survived as well. Both of them were rescued and brought aboard the ship. As the vessel finally headed toward shore, Ben realized the nightmare was over. After everything he had survived, he was finally going to see his family again. And with that, the movie ends.